Emma had always been cautious when it came to love. She wasn't the type to fall easily, but something about Daniel made her let her guard down. They met at a business conference, an unexpected connection that felt natural, effortless. He was older, confident, and spoke with a charm that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. When he told her he was separated and moving on from a broken marriage, she believed him. Weeks passed, and their relationship grew. Late-night conversations, stolen moments over coffee, and the way he looked at her made her believe she had finally found something real. Daniel wasn't just another man. He made her feel safe, valued. When he invited her to his house for dinner, she hesitated but eventually agreed. It felt like the right step, proof that their relationship was more than just fleeting romance. The evening was perfect. Soft jazz played in the background, the scent of roasted garlic filled the air, and candlelight flickered between them. Daniel had gone all out, cooking dinner himself, pouring wine, making her laugh with stories of his youth. Everything felt right. Then, the front door swung open. A tall young man stood in the doorway, his sharp eyes locking onto Emma before shifting to his father. Daniel tensed, the warmth in his expression fading. "Ethan," he said, voice tight. "I thought you were staying at school this weekend." Ethan dropped his bag on the floor, barely acknowledging his father. His gaze settled back on Emma, studying her in a way that made her uncomfortable. "Change of plans," he said flatly, before walking past them into the kitchen. Emma glanced at Daniel, sensing something unspoken between them. He forced a smile, reaching for her hand. "Ignore him. He's just not great with new people." She nodded, trying to shake the unease settling in her chest. But as the night continued, Ethan's presence lingered. He didn't join them for dinner but made his presence known, walking past them, standing in the hallway just out of sight, listening. His silence felt deliberate, heavy. At one point, when Daniel stepped away to take a phone call, Emma turned to find Ethan watching her from the living room doorway. His expression was unreadable, but his smirk was unsettling. "So," he said, leaning against the wall, "you must be the latest." Emma frowned. "Excuse me?" Ethan tilted his head, his smirk widening. "You really think you're different, don't you?" Her stomach tightened. "I don't know what you mean." Ethan let out a low chuckle, pushing off the wall. "Sure you don't." He walked away, disappearing upstairs without another word. Daniel returned moments later, oblivious to the tension in the room. But for the first time since she met him, Emma wasn't sure if she truly knew the man sitting across from her. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Ethan's words lingered in her mind, twisting the excitement she had felt into doubt. She watched him from across the room, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable. There was something calculated about the way he moved, like he was waiting for something. Daniel seemed unaffected, continuing their conversation as if nothing had happened. But Emma noticed the way he avoided making eye contact whenever Ethan was nearby. She had questions, but now didn't feel like the right time to ask. Instead, she focused on finishing her wine, hoping to push away the unease creeping in. Minutes later, Daniel excused himself to take another call, leaving her alone in the dimly lit living room. Almost immediately, Ethan reappeared, stepping into the space with an air of quiet confidence. "So, how long do you think this one's gonna last?" he asked casually, his tone laced with amusement. Emma stiffened. "I don't know what you're trying to do, but it's not working." Ethan chuckled, stepping closer. "I'm just curious. My dad has a habit of bringing women around. They always think they're special." She felt a cold chill run down her spine. "He told me he was separated." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Is that what he said?" He reached for a bottle of whiskey on the nearby shelf, pouring himself a glass. "That's interesting because my mom's still very much his wife. She'll be back next week, in case you were wondering." Emma's grip tightened around her glass. "You're lying." He took a slow sip, eyes locked onto hers. "Am I?" Her heart pounded. Everything about the night suddenly felt staged, like she had walked into something she didn't understand. She glanced toward the hallway, listening for Daniel's voice. She needed to hear the truth from him. Ethan stepped even closer, his presence unsettling. "You should probably leave before things get messy." Emma forced herself to stay calm. Why are you telling me this? He tilted his head, studying her. Because it's fun watching people realize they're not as special as they think. Daniel's footsteps echoed down the hall, and Ethan took a step back, his smirk never fading. Emma's pulse raced as Daniel entered the room, smiling as if nothing had changed. "Everything okay?" he asked, oblivious. Emma turned to him, her voice steady but laced with tension. "Is it true? Are you still married?" Daniel's face fell. He hesitated, the pause stretching too long. "It's complicated," he finally admitted. Ethan let out a soft laugh. "Told you." Emma's stomach dropped. The man she had trusted had been lying to her from the beginning. And standing beside him was his son, watching her unravel like it was nothing more than entertainment. Emma felt the weight of betrayal settle in her chest. The air in the room grew heavier, thick with unspoken truths. She had trusted Daniel, believed in the version of him he had shown her, but now the foundation of their relationship was crumbling. Daniel reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "I can explain," he started, but the words sounded rehearsed, empty. Ethan leaned against the wall, watching with mild amusement. "Go ahead, Dad. Let's hear this explanation." Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. "You lied to me," she said, her voice cold. "I asked you. I gave you a chance to tell me the truth." Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not like that. My marriage has been over for a long time. We just haven't finalized things legally." Ethan scoffed. "That's one way to put it." Emma turned to him, her frustration mounting. "And you? What is this to you? Some kind of game?" He smiled, slow and deliberate. "Maybe. Or maybe I just don't like watching my dad play the same tricks over and over." Emma shook her head, disgusted. "You enjoyed this, didn't you? Watching me fall for the lies, waiting for the moment you could tear it all apart." Ethan didn't deny it. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice lower. "I just don't get why women keep falling for him. It's pathetic." Daniel's face darkened. "Enough, Ethan." Ethan ignored him, his gaze locked onto Emma's. "You really thought you were different? That he wasn't going to do to you what he's done to every other woman?" Emma felt sick. She had ignored the warnings, the tiny red flags. She had wanted to believe in something good, and now she was standing in the middle of a cruel, twisted reality. Daniel tried to touch her arm, but she stepped back. "I can't do this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan chuckled. "Smart choice." She turned toward the door, but before she could leave, Ethan spoke again. "You know, if you're into older guys, I'm sure I could treat you better than he ever could." Emma froze, rage bubbling to the surface. She spun to face him, eyes blazing. "You're disgusting." Ethan smirked. "You're just mad because I see you for what you are. Another woman who thought she was special." Daniel's voice was sharp. "That's enough." But it didn't matter anymore. Emma had all the answers she needed. She had walked into this house believing in love, in trust. Now, all she wanted was to get as far away as possible. Without another word, she turned and walked out, leaving them both behind. Emma stepped out into the night, the cold air hitting her like a slap. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady her breath, but the whirlwind of emotions inside her made it impossible. The weight of betrayal pressed against her chest, suffocating. She had been so blind, so trusting. How had she not seen the truth sooner? Behind her, the door opened. Footsteps followed. She didn't need to turn around to know it was Daniel. "Emma, wait," he called, his voice softer now, almost pleading. She kept walking, determined to put as much distance between them as possible. "I never meant to hurt you," he said, quickening his pace to catch up. "Please, just hear me out." Emma stopped, spinning to face him. "Hear you out? What else is there to say, Daniel? You lied. You used me." His face twisted with regret. "I didn't use you. What I felt for you is real." She let out a bitter laugh. "Real? Real would have been honesty from the beginning. Real would have been telling me you were still married before I walked into your house." Daniel exhaled, frustration creeping into his features. "I was going to tell you. I just—" She shook her head, cutting him off. "No. You weren't. You were going to let me believe whatever suited you best, just like you've done with every other woman before me. Silence stretched between them. Daniel looked away, guilt written all over his face. Emma took a step back, suddenly exhausted. And your son? Is he just like you? Or is he worse? Daniel's jaw tightened. Ethan has his own issues. She scoffed. That much is obvious. He enjoys watching people suffer. He enjoyed watching me realize what a fool I've been. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looking pained. He's angry. At me, at his mother, at everything. He lashes out. Emma's stomach twisted. And yet, I was the one caught in the middle of it. Daniel reached for her, but she stepped away. Emma, don't let one mistake ruin everything we had. She stared at him, disbelief washing over her. One mistake? Daniel, this wasn't a mistake. This was calculated. This was manipulation. His shoulders slumped, his expression defeated. I never wanted this to happen. Emma took a deep breath, her decision clear. Well, it did. And I won't be another name on Ethan's list of women you fooled. She turned, walking away for the last time. She wouldn't cry, wouldn't break. She had fallen into a lie, but she wouldn't stay in it. As she reached her car, she felt the first waves of freedom settling in. She had lost something tonight, but she had also gained something back, herself.